dark academia for Halloween, Christmas, or any other time of year. It's still spooky, it's still creepy, and it's still very, very dark. Hello everyone, I'm Caroline, and today I'm going to make some dark academia things to go on a tree. Now you can use this for a dark academia Christmas, or a dark academia Halloween, or even just for the fun of dark academia. It'll suit any of those. Right, no time for chatting, let's get on with crafting. For this creepy Halloween Christmas tree craft, I've got a bowl of coffee, and it's not too strong, and lots of bits of fabric. And I want to dye these to make them look really old and creepy. So I'm going to take some, about a third I suppose, pop them in like that. Then sprinkle on a little bit of this coffee. It's completely out of date, so I thought, I know how I can use that. Sprinkle some in there. Then I'm going to put my next third in on top, because I'm hoping to get these in a blotchy type of design. We'll find out. It may work, it may not. Cotton fabric should take the colour. If you've got some polyester in there, or if it's all polyester, it will struggle. And then I think I'll just sprinkle on the last. I'll put it all on, why not? There we go. I soaked these overnight in the coffee. They've got a lovely look on them that really screams, these are mummy bandages. But the little bit of sprinkling I did didn't really work. There are just a few little bits on some pieces, but I think that's because I didn't put enough on. I didn't imagine how much I would need. But I'm still happy, and we're going to do some darkening anyway, so that's not a problem. So next I need something to mummify. And I got this doll. I can't remember how much I paid for this. It wasn't much. It was either like 50p or free. I never pay a lot for anything. Now, if you can get any doll that's the size you need for your tree, I would actually recommend you don't use a China one because they're fairly weighty. But I've got a China one, so a China one is going to be. They've still got the plastic on their feet. Look at that. So I'm going to take the arms off this doll. Get little bits of elastic in there. So I'm going to chop and hope the legs don't come off as well. If they're all attached, and the head. If they're all attached, I'm in trouble. Oh, look at that. The head was definitely attached. Whoops. The legs. Right, so that was all done with one piece of elastic. Oh, wasn't that fun? Surprising, but fun. So now I'm going to cash in on the disaster situation. It's never a disaster. It's just a problem we need to solve. So I'm going to save the head. I think I can use that for something else. I'm not going to use the arms because if I show you, they just won't lie right as mummy's arms, whichever side I put them on. They stick up too much. So, you didn't see that very well, did you? You get the idea. So I've cut myself 2 pieces of glue sticks, and I'm going to put those on as mummy arms. And I'm going to use this ping pong ball as a head. I'm going to use glue sticks for the legs because the other legs are too far apart. And I want this to be a real mummy, an obvious mummy shape. Now, if I was using a teenage doll, that would be much better because they're pretty good for mummifying positions, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to put those 2 legs there. Well, they're not 2 legs. They're supposed to be 1 leg. Imagine that's a leg. Now glue the arms across the chest. I'm finding the best way to glue a glue stick is to push the glue gun into the glue stick until it melts a bit and squeeze your glue gun as it's coming out to get some glue out. And then it sticks really quickly, but trying to do it just adding some hot glue, it just came straight back off. That's fine. And now I want to put the head on the top. Pop that in. And now begin the mummifying process. This is very fiddly with a little body like this. I dread to think how on earth they managed with a full-size body when they were mummifying those. Picking it up, turning it over. I've never really respected the efforts of somebody who mummified bodies, but now I do. And don't worry if some of your bandages are not perfect. Well, I should say I dried these by ironing them. I know I don't usually iron things unless I really have to, but I was in a hurry, and because I hadn't swilled all the coffee off, I didn't want my dryer smelling of coffee. So I decided, I know what I can do, I can iron them. So I got an old towel and ironed them on that, and they dried in no time. That was after they'd been dripping all night, I should say. They weren't absolutely soaking wet. I wouldn't want anything soaking wet with anything electrical. Once you've gone round once, go round a second time. And that way then you can cover any bits that didn't quite work. You can pad out bits, sort out loose ends you don't like. Get your mummy looking. We don't want him looking too tidy because obviously he's been around for thousands of years. You want him to look like a convincing mummy. Now I'm going to take some watercolour. This is burnt umber. I've watered it down. And then I'm just going to put darker bits occasionally where there be like little joins in the body or things like that. Scruff it up a little bit. It's completely optional. All depends how you want this to look. You can make it much more runny and virtually cover the whole thing if you wanted to. So easy and so cheap if you just use bits of junk to form the shape and then wrap it around with some old torn fabric you dyed in coffee or tea. I suppose you could even plant some in the garden for a week, dig it back up and it would look nicely aged. Right, let's see what this looks like on my spooky Halloween tree. Ooh. For this part of my creepy Halloween tree decoration, I got this braid. It's a bead garland, isn't it, they call it? And I got this off the tree. Oh, there are loads of little bits of glue and tree still stuck to it. This was really firmly stuck. Now, I don't mind there being bits of glue. I don't want bits of tree. So I pulled off all the bits of tree and I'm throwing those away. And I've got this tub. I'm using a larger tub because these beads will need a lot of space. I've got this black acrylic paint. I've never used this. It's Colvin & Co. Never heard of them. But I had this for 50p, so I thought, ooh, I'll buy that and see if it works. So I put quite a lot in here because I'm going to coat all these beads with paint. And you can tell that's a lot of paint that's going to be needed. I'll put a bit more in as well. It's quite runny, this one. Now you can use some corn flour or cornstarch. I'm using some talc. And it makes a chalk paint. I've got no real recipe for chalk paint. I just stick a blob of this and a blob of that in. And then we're going to mix this around. And I think I'm going to need some more water because this has gone quite thick now. But just keep adding the ingredients until you like the texture that it is. I'm looking for a medium sort of paint. I don't want it really thick. I don't want a paste, but I don't want it runny either. You can make yourself a garland of wooden beads, and wooden beads will take the paint much better than these shiny ones. So that's why I need it a little bit thicker than if I was using wood. And now it's pretty mixed up. I'm going to pop my bead garland into the paint. I know, doesn't that look drastic? And then roll it around until all the beads are coated. This is very therapeutic. If you've got a lot of excess paint, you might as well save it. I haven't, so I'm just mopping up some of it so that it'll be quicker to dry the beads. And now stir the beads while drying them with a hairdryer. I know it sounds crazy, but it does work. And now I'm having one of those serendipitous moments because I was going to wait until they were nearly dry, throw in some glitter and see what happened. And look, it's really difficult to get the paint to stick to these metallic finished beads. And look, they look like they're already glittered. So I think I've saved myself some glitter and some time. I'm just going to carry on drying. We're nearly there. It does take a long time, be warned. Settle down, pop something on the TV or put some music on. And they're finished. Look at this. And by using cornstarch or talc, something like that, it really gives a texture to these beads. And I do love the way some of it didn't get coated. I'm glad I didn't use wooden beads now. I think they're much better. They're much more creepy. Quite a few bits dropped off, so be aware of that. Give them a good shake before you actually take them away from your work area. Oh, they're going to look great on my Halloween tree. I can't wait. please get yourself some clay. I'm using DAS modelling clay that air dries. Make yourself a little bowl, an oval bowl, flatten it a little bit, and then pinch in at the bottom to shape a skull. Now when you've done that, and it takes a while, take your time, enjoy the process, and if it goes wrong, scrunch it all up and start again. Try making some different faces. Now I want 2 skulls on this bauble, so I've made 2 faces. And I've decided to give them different expressions. You can really play about, you can make happy skulls, scary skulls. So I've done one just looking with his teeth showing, and one going, ooh. Now I want to add something other than skulls to my bauble, so I've got my moulds out, and I'm going to make myself 2 mouldings. And I've not got any scary mouldings, so I've decided to go with something a little bit classical. So I always dust my mould with some talc first, or you can use corn flour, anything like that. And then add some clay, but you'll always overestimate how much you need. It's amazing just how little you need, especially the more intricate the detail of the mould. I always like to make 2 moulds anyway. I may use both, but then I can use the best one if I'm only going to use one. I very rarely have success on the first mould. And I have heard that it's easier if you put your mould in the freezer for 10 minutes before you take the clay out. I've never got the patience for that, so I don't. And mine are okay. They're passable. I'm happy with that. But if you're a bit more of a perfectionist, which is good, then take a little bit more care over your mould making. So now back out with my bauble, take the end off. I normally use wood glue with this sort of thing, but I'm going to use tacky glue because I'm down to the dregs, so I use a brush anyway on this, plus it's very thick now. So the plan is to come down either side with part of these classical moulding shapes. Mine are a bit long, but I'm not worried about that, as long as I've got a good end on the top, because the bottom end will be coming off. You don't need modelling tools, but it is very useful if you've got them. If you get a pack, you've got all the different sizes and shapes you could need. I like to take this end one and just push all the edges down. The more care you take with this, the more you will be rewarded with a much better bauble at the end. But it all depends what your patience is like and how much you want to commit to your bauble. If you're happy enough with it as it is, then don't worry too much. I'm going to take my skulls and I'm going to put one either side, one on one side and one on the other. In the ideal world, you will have let your glue dry. I'm going, as usual, for working with wet glue. Now come over everything with your chalk paint. There's so much detail and relief on this. It's going to be a little bit difficult, and you may decide you're going to use a smaller brush. That will speed things up when it comes to getting in the nooks and crannies. You can't be doing with unpainted nooks and crannies. And I always put an extra bit of paint around all the joins, and then it soaks in under the join. It makes it look neater and also gives a little bit extra sticking power. Oh, I meant to mention I stuck a cinnamon stick in the end to make it easier to hold. So now I'm going to poke my cinnamon stick into something to support this while it dries. And then we'll get on with the next stage. Now this is dry, I'm going to use some of my silver gilding paste and gild over the top. Now this has been a nightmare. In the end, I had to use some hot glue because I could not get these things to stick to this bauble. I don't know what it was, but it was really difficult. You can use some white paint or some silver paint. And I'm going to use this, 1, to add to the highlights, and 2, just to put a few little random bits and pieces onto the bauble, just to add a bit more interest. I'm terrible. I can't control myself with gilding paste. I do try, but I just love it. So I'm going to put extra on and then wipe it off and see what the finish is like on the bauble. I definitely don't want it too even. And there are little bits of silver bauble showing through. If you're ever going to do this, don't do it on a bauble that's been painted. I'm really regretting this. Look at this. I've glued it. I've hot glued it. And it's still slippery. I just don't know what to do. This has got to be the worst bauble in the world. I'm going to carry on regardless and persevere because I think it's going to look good. It's just I can't get any glue to dry on it. Every time I wipe it, more paint comes off. The paint wouldn't stick. Get my little bauble end. Pull it back through until it clicks small like that. Put it in the top and then push and it's all back in place. Now, it doesn't really fit, does it, being gold? I wonder if I can get some gilding paste on there, at least to tone it down. Even if it doesn't turn it completely silver. Let's give it a go. Oh yeah, that's definitely working at toning it down. So then we got my creepy bauble. Not my finest moment, but it was fun to make. And I do like the gilding look on anything. You can put gilding on just about anything and it looks lovely. Right, let's see what this looks like up on my tree. I had nothing but trouble with it. 3 lots of glue and the little skulls still kept falling off. Something going on with this bauble. I've never had this trouble before. And then, before I filmed it, I dropped it and it cracked. Oh! So this bauble does not look its best. This spooky Halloween tree decoration is going to be part of a topper, and I did use this for a different project. It came off one of those big long skeletons you can get at Poundland, Dollar Tree, that sort of place, and I cut the head off. Originally this was on a spell book. I've taken it off. It's got damage from storage, so it needs another coat of paint. So I can show you how to get this effect, because it really is a cheap, nasty plastic thing, so it didn't look very good for a craft like this. You couldn't actually see it if it was on a tree, so it definitely needs to be painted. So if you get rid of all the gold and give this a good coating, then there's no way you're going to see any chips or anything. It's going to look good as new. And this can always be done with lots of your things. When you're bored with them, craft items, take them apart, paint them up, or just repair them with a bit of paint the same colour. And you've got something else to play with then. Because crafting can be very expensive. It is surprising how much things cost. Now I've decided, and I may live to regret this, I'm going to go for grey. So I'm going to put a blob of black paint out, add a tiny bit of white. You can always add more. This is chalk paint, but I'm just using acrylic paint to add the white. If you think it's a bit runny for you, then add a little bit of cornflour or something like that, a bit of talc, just to thicken it up again. And now I want a dry brush on top of the wet. So let's make sure I've got a nice dry brush. And I'm just going to add little bits here and there. And then in anything that dips in, I'm going to add some light grey in there too, just to make it stand out. And I think I'll put some light grey on his teeth. You haven't been cleaning your teeth, have you, Mr. Skull? Tut tut. And dry my brush off. And then fluff up the bits I've already put on. Blend them in a little bit better. Just make a very pale grey. It's always hit and miss with this sort of thing, but don't panic, because if it goes really wrong, you just paint over the top. Dry off my brush again. It's always useful to keep your Amazon packaging. It's amazing how handy it comes in. And just blend that in too. I'm actually liking the lighter colour. I'm going to do a little bit more, I think. And play with this. It's great fun. Just keep experimenting, adding on. And the more shades you add on, the more depth this gets anyway. So it actually works out quite well. I've got an idea. Me and my ideas. I'll keep going and then I'll be, I've got to repaint it. Dry brush and just plain white over the top as well, I think. Add a bit in his nose. Pick those teeth up a little bit. Your dentist would be ashamed of you, Mr. Skull. Dry off my brush again. Just daub it about. Oh yes, I'm much preferring this to silver or gold. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Would you have kept it the way it was, or do you prefer it this way? I preferred it this way. I think it's lovely. It's got almost a metallic look to it. So don't forget, if you want to get one of these, pop to your pound store, Poundland, Dollar Tree, possibly Dollar General, and they've probably got them in. You'd better be quick, because Halloween is almost here and things are flying off the shelves. And there you've got yourself a quick and easy decoration for your Halloween tree. Are you enjoying Dark Academia crafts? If so, then why not subscribe? There are lots more crafts coming, Dark Academia and lots of others too. It's going to be fun. For this creepy Halloween tree decoration craft, I'm going to use one of these little wooden bats. You can get multi-packs of different shapes for Halloween in Poundland, Hobby Lobby, Dollar Tree, anywhere like that. If you got one of those glow forges, you could make your own. But have you seen the price on those? Lovely things, and they're huge. And apparently they're noisy. And fumey, so not for me. I'm going to use more of my homemade black chalk paint. My special secret recipe is black acrylic paint, a blodge of talcum powder or cornstarch, anything like that, anything powdery, a little bit of water to thin it out and mix it together. Proportions, I have no idea. There are videos online if you want to check and get all your proportions right. You know me, I'm not the most accurate crafter in the world. The advantage with chalk paint is it dries so quickly. You can see there the carving or the lines for the shape of the bat's body and a smiley face. But I just want to make this look a little more spooky, so I'm going to use the back. I've coloured it anyway because that way then if it spins round, as decorations often do, then it'll still be black. But I'm going to use this side, so I need to turn it over the other side. I got this absolutely stunning lace edging. It tends to get very tangled. I'm going to come along the bottom edge of the wings of the bat. I'm not worrying about following the shape exactly. I don't think I need to. I think we'll be okay. Down to the bottom of the wing and then chop it off. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on each end of the cut area in case there's any issues with unravelling. And then do the same on the other side. And look at that. You can use any lace. It doesn't have to be as long or as dramatic as this. But I think that long braid really does look dramatic. It looks like the bat is swooping along. Very difficult to see lying down. But it's going to look brilliant on the tree. Let's find out if it really does. For this easy spooky Halloween tree craft, I've got these wings. Now I picked these up at a car boot sale for 50p. Admittedly, you may not be able to get them for that price. You may need to buy them from Dollar General or pound shops or Hobby Lobby, some sort of craft store. Keep an eye out though, because these have been popular, and you can also make them by cutting out some wing shapes, covering them with feathers, and you can work from there. But that would take me too long. I don't think that suits the way I like to craft. Could you imagine gluing each of these feathers on individually? When I picked this up, it gave me the idea. It looks like it was originally a rainbow style, and then they decided to paint it black. Well, I thought, it's not completely covered, so I want to cover it a bit more, but it's a very clever idea. So don't worry, whatever colour the feathers are, when you get yourself some wings, you can change that. So I'm going to need to take these elasticated hanger holder things off. And now it's just a matter of out with the chalk paint and spending quite a bit of time covering all the bits where you can still see colour. I did wonder about leaving them because when you get really black wings on birds, they can be quite shimmery and have a rainbow effect on them. But I thought, no, I want to go for all black. I think it'll suit the mood of the tree better. While I'm painting these wings, I just want to take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to all my viewers, all my subscribers, everyone who leaves a like or a comment. I really do appreciate it, and I love reading your comments. It's well worth checking out those comments because some people are putting in their ideas and things, and there is so much coming up, so many hints and tips. It really is a good place to go to learn things. Well, there you go, I'm done. There are some little spots that I've missed, but I definitely know now that making a pair of wings out of feathers isn't for me because I got really bored trying to cover up all the little bits that hadn't been painted yet. But I think that'll be fine, and I'm sure you're all far too polite to point out if you can see any bits of paint still showing. So let's see what this looks like up on the tree. For this creepy Halloween tree decoration, I got myself some bits and pieces. I've got the arms that I took off the doll that fell apart. I've got this piece of balsa wood. This balsa wood is the right length to hold my arms, whatever direction I choose to put them in. I'm not quite sure yet. And I've got a little piece of rag. So I'm going to start off by dealing with the rag. Pop in some of this, I'll show you what it is. It's a Scarlet Luma Brilliant Concentrate Watercolour. Important, shake well. Whoops, I didn't shake well. Give it a shake. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same as the bit that I didn't shake. I'm going to pop this little rag in. And I want that to get stained nicely red all over. Yep, that's looking pretty red. Out with some kitchen roll and pop it on there. And it shouldn't take long to dry being ink. Now I'm going to take my little bit of balsa wood, and the first thing I'm going to do is make a hole in the top for a hanger. So I've got my crocodile big bite. Let's measure this. It's about 3 inches. I want about 1.5 inches. So it's there-ish. Pop it in and make a hole. Now out with some Rust-Oleum dark finishing wax. If you haven't got finishing wax, you can use a very dark watercolour paint and put a lot of water in it to make it easier to flow, and that'll do just as good a job. Oh, and finishing wax is much more difficult to get off your hands than a bit of watercolour. At this point I'm going to add a hanger. So now to deal with the hands. To get a dry brush, I'm just going to put little bits on this and try to just age them a little bit. I'm going to put a few layers on, because the more layers you put on, the richer and deeper the effect is. Play about with your colours and then get lots and lots of shades. Add them on top of each other. Because you're using a dry brush, it doesn't matter about waiting for drying time. You can just get on with it. Yep, I'm happy with that. Now we need to just mount them on the plaque at the back. Now there looks calm. I think if I put them up that way, they look a bit more alarmed for some reason. So I'm going to glue them into place in an alarmed position. And now to deal with this. I really should have done this before I mounted them, but never mind. We can do it now and it'll be just as good. I'm just going to cut myself 2 strips, and then I'm going to poke this into the end of the arms, but I'm going to pop a bit of glue in first to make sure they stay in place. And there we go. We got some creepy arms on a plaque. What's the situation that made somebody put creepy arms on a plaque? Ooh, the mind boggles. Scary. Ah! For this scary Halloween decoration to hang on my tree, I'm going to use the head that came off my little doll that I never ended up using the whole thing off. Now she's got a bit of a divot in her head there, which is perfect. Make a hanger by tying a knot in a length of twine or rope, or I'm not quite sure what this is. It's black and sparkly. And then I'm going to put a little blob into the divot there, the hot glue, and then pop the little knot on. Make sure it goes right into the centre, like that. So now we got the hanger, we can get on with the rest of the face. So I'm going to pull her hair up like that. Ooh, talk about hair standing on end. Ah! Now we're going to use more of my palette. Just add some extra white on. I want a very, very pale grey. I don't mind if a little bit of the brown goes in as well. Completely paint over her face. If you've got a doll's head and it's got the wrong colour hair, you can actually paint the hair with acrylic paints. I've done this on a few occasions. You can even paint fur fabric. She's looking rather spooky, and now she needs to dry. How do I do this while it's drying? If I let it go, her hair's going to get a mess. I'll figure something out and I'll be back. I've dried her off with the hairdryer. Now I'm going to add a bit of hot glue to the bottom, and I got this. I took this off like a skeleton thing I bought from the pound shop, which is like Dollar Tree, that sort of thing. So you can probably find it in most of your cheapy shops. It's always worth hanging on to the most ridiculous looking things, because who'd have thought I'd have found a use for this? I can't get the glue off it, but that doesn't matter in this project. So I'm going to come around, and I'm going to snip that bit of glue off because it is a bit obvious there, and then fray the ends. Make them look really scruffy. Now we're going to take this piece of lace, chop it into strips, put this around the top and glue it at the back, and just adds a little bit more depth to the lacy dangly bits. And then I was going to put a black bow on, but something's just gone wrong with my drawer and it's completely jammed. So rather than try to sort that out, I'm going to use a red bow. In case you're thinking, why does that matter? I've got all my black ribbons and laces in one drawer, and that's the drawer that's jammed. So I'm just going to tie a 2-loop bow and stick this around her neck. Like that. Now, taking my life in my hands and hoping I don't get black where I don't want it, I'm going to go over her eyes with a marker pen. I find this more difficult than all the rest of the work I've done, trying to stay in the lines, which I didn't do very well, did I? Never mind, she's okay. She'll do. Now we just need to give her a hairstyle. Now, this hairstyle is too sticky up, but I certainly don't want her looking neat. I want it a bit crazed and wild. Because after all, this is Halloween, where the scariest, creepiest things happen. And it can make your hair go a little bit like this. And there we go. Oh, I love that. I think she's turned out much better than I thought she was going to. And all because that doll fell apart. Oh, I just love freebies like that I never knew I'd have. This should be completely covered by mummified bandages now, and it's been replaced by a bing bong ball. Right, let's see what this looks like up on my spooky tree. Halloween craft for my Christmas tree, I've got this little bag and it's got a little bow and a pretty little bunny or something on it, or reindeer. I'm going to take the bow off because I don't want it. It's too pretty for Halloween. Get some black acrylic paint. I'm going to paint the bag and go right over the bow as well, the little bit I couldn't get off. You can use a fabric paint if you want to. I tend to use acrylic. I'm not sure how much of a good job it does compared to fabric paint because I've never used fabric paint, but I'm quite happy with it. Now I got this little witch made out of wood, so I'm going to mix up a little bit of pale grey again, and I'm going to paint my witch. Oh, that's not very pale, but I think it'll be okay. I just want you to be able to see the contrast between the black and the witch. Right, my bag isn't completely dry, so I'm going to try not to get any paint on my hands, and I'm going to stuff the legs into the bag like that. And then I'm going to put some feathers sticking out of the bag as well. No real reason. It adds a little bit of interest. I'm trying to use this wet wipe so I don't get covered in paint. I think it's inevitable. When have you ever known me to get to the end of a craft and not being covered in paint? And now I've got this bit of lace that I'm going to tuck in the top like that too. Now to glue on my witch. And now I'm going to let this dry, attach a hanger when it's dry because I'm never going to manage when it's wet. Oh look, I've even got black on my witch. Oh, paint over the top of that. And then I'll show you what this looks like hanging on the tree. This is a super quick and super easy Halloween decoration. You're either going to love it or hate it. When I first thought of it, I thought, is it a bit basic? And then I thought, well, I don't think it is. I think it's different. So I'll show you what I'm going to make and then let me know in the comments. Do you think this was a little bit too basic or not? I've got a needle threaded with some crochet cotton. I'm going up through the hair and back down. I've got my loop to hang this. And then tie a knot in the bottom and chop the end off. Now I just think that's got a creepiness all of its own. I just think it's really like, ooh. You can't really tell what's going on under the fringe. Why is that scalp there? What on earth happened? Is this a scene of some sort of horrible thing? Or is it some sort of weird mutant? Remember Cousin It? It's a bit like a curly cousin, isn't it? So I love it. Do you love it or hate it? Or are you just completely indifferent? Think, nah. Let me know in the comment. I'd love to know. Right, let's go and check out what this looks like hanging on the tree. Here is that bauble. Look at that, the back fell off and I can't find the back skull. How bad was that? My favourite of the day. I love my mummy. Which one was your favourite? I'd love to know. So before you go, don't forget to subscribe and let me know which was your favourite. I'll see you all next time, but until then, don't forget, have fun. Bye.